can break the dark. A single spark ignites the heart. But if we turn when justice calls, the chains we forge will bind us all. When truth is silenced, when lies take hold, the cost is freedom, the soul grows cold. No one stands tall while another must fall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, defending every voice, defending every right. For the moment we falter, the moment we stall, we lose our own freedom when we let others fall. You can't stand free while others kneel. When justice fades, it's freedom they steal. An innocent condemned, a crime unspoken, and with it the bond of liberty is broken. No tyrant rules without our consent. Oppression thrives where silence is spent. Stand for the weak, the silence is small, or freedom will crumble for us all. We're mavericks of freedom, guardians of the light, fighting for the truth, for what is just and right. For the rights of one are the rights of all. We rise or we fall by answering the call. Even those we may oppose deserve the rights we all uphold. For if we deny them what is fair, we build our own prison in despair. The fight's not easy, it never will be, but justice for one is the key to be free. We stand as mavericks, together we strive, defending the rights that keep freedom alive. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, upholding every truth, protecting every right. When one is oppressed, we're all in the thrall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. So take a stand, let your courage rise. Defend the truth, don't compromise. For the soul of the world, the writing's on the wall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all.
T-minus 30 seconds and counting. And SpaceX is about to launch this rescue mission. 15 seconds.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7,
This is live.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go NASA Crew 10. Copy, 1 Alpha.
And liftoff of Crew 10 now
Vehicle
soaring to the
pitching down
International
range.
Space Station. 1.7 million pounds of thrust now propelling Falcon 9 and Crew 10. And we're continuing to get good call-outs on the first stage performance so far. We're now 40 seconds into today's flight.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Continuing to get good performance call-outs.
Throttle down.
Yeah, we are throttling down the engines in preparation for
Max
Max
Q.
What great timing that was. We just passed through Max Q. That's the largest structural load that the vehicle will see on ascent.
Vehicle supersonic. Stage 1 throttle up.
We're now just over 1 minute and 10 seconds into today's flight, traveling at more than 1,400 miles per hour.
Stage 1 Bravo.
And we just heard that call out
Copies,
for
1 Bravo.
1 Bravo, which means we're in the second and final abort mode for the first stage, continuing to get good performance, and the crew already pulling over 2 Gs. Next up, we'll have a couple of events happening in rapid succession.
Back chill started.
First will be that engine chill on the second stage impact engine, which we just heard. And then we'll have MECO, or main engine cutoff, where the 9 engines on the first stage will cut off ahead of the first and second stages will be separating from one another. Then the single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite and continue to carry Crew 10 to orbit while the first stage begins its journey back to Earth. Now we're just 2 minutes into today's flight. The vehicle is traveling just under 4,000 miles per hour.
We're just about 20 seconds away from those events that Anna just mentioned. The 9 Merlin engines will shut down here in just about 10 seconds for
Stage one
MECO,
throttle down.
stage separation, and SES-1.
And this sets the stage for the rescue of those 2 American
Main engine
astronauts,
SpaceX Dragon, Q Alpha.
Stage separation confirmed.
Butch
Copy,
Wilmore
Q.
and Suni Williams.
Great
They've
call
been-
outs and incredible views there on your
And
left-hand
recognition.
screen. On your left-hand screen, you can see a view from stage 1. And an extremely excited crowd here in Hawthorne. Awesome views of that boost back burn on the first stage, as well as the MVAC engine igniting on the second stage. Great views there. Now the booster is in its boost back burn. This is the first of 3 burns as it makes its way back down to Earth. This will last about 45 seconds. And the crew, 10 crew, is still on board Dragon attached to Falcon 9 second stage, which you can see there on your right-hand screen.
And we're now at 3 minutes and 20 seconds into today's flight. The vehicle is traveling about 6,500 miles per hour. And they are on their way to the space station. And we did have that confirmation coming up of the boost back shutdown. And then coming up at the T+6 minute mark. And there we have our first images of the crew inside the Dragon spacecraft as they make their way into orbit. And the crew
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
continuing to get good call outs.
SpaceX Dragon, copy nominal.
Stage 2 continues to be on power with in its firing until we get to that second stage engine cutoff around the 9-minute mark of flight. About 5 minutes of flight to go before Dragon will be flying free.
Some cool views there on your left-hand screen. That's the first stage booster as it's making its way back down to Earth. This is a ground tracking camera getting these awesome views.
And on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see that lone Merlin vacuum engine of the second stage. We're continuing to get good performance on the second stage. And the crew's G loads will dip right when we hit the separation events, and it's going to continue to build up until then.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
SpaceX Dragon, copy nominal.
We're now at 5 minutes into today's flight with a liftoff at 7:03 p.m. Pacific, 7:03 p.m. Eastern, 4:03 p.m. Pacific. Continuing to get good call-outs as Stage 1 makes its way back to Earth, and Stage 2 continues to fire, propelling Dragon into orbit.
If you're just now joining us, the 4 members of Crew 10 launched from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And they're currently on board Dragon, still attached to Falcon 9 second stage, which you're seeing there on your right-hand screen. On your left-hand screen, the first stage vehicle is making its way back down to Earth. It already completed the first of 3 burns as the boost back burn. And the next event coming up for that vehicle is going to be the entry burn.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Great call outs there. That entry burn is coming up.
SpaceX Dragon, copy nominal.
That entry burn is coming up here in just under 20 seconds. We'll reignite 3 of those 9 Merlin 1D engines to help slow the vehicle down as it makes its way back into the Earth's atmosphere.
We're now just over 6 minutes into today's flight as Dragon and the second stage continue traveling at over 12,000 miles per hour, making their way into orbit and on the way to the International Space Station.
There, we just saw on the screen, it was very quick, but we had the entry burn, which we got some cool views of that from the ground, which is awesome. Now, the next event coming up will be the landing burn for the first stage. That's coming up here in about 30 seconds.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
And great call outs for
SpaceX Dragon, copy nominal.
Confirmation there from the crew as they continue to make their way into orbit. Now 7 minutes into today's flight, the first stage making its way back down to Earth and the second stage continuing to fire.
This is an awesome view. Let's see if we can see the center engine relight for that landing burn here in a few seconds. There's that landing burn. Let's watch as Falcon 9 touches down on landing zone 1.
Stage 2 SOS in space.
And the crowd here is excited to see Falcon 9 touch down on landing zone 1.
And now that the first stage has made its way back to Earth, we're about a minute away from the second engine cutoff, which we're expecting around the 9-minute mark of today's flight. We're continuing to get good call outs, and Dragon and all of the systems on the vehicle are performing as expected. Just over 8 minutes into today's flight, traveling more than 21,000 miles per hour.
Terminal guidance.
Hearing good call outs. We're about 30 seconds away from that second engine cutoff, and then shortly after that, about a minute or so later, we will have orbital insertion.
So those 2 American astronauts have been stuck up there since last June.
SpaceX Dragon, Shannon.
SpaceX copy, Shannon.
That call out there for Shannon, and that is the call out for Shannon, Ireland, which is the final abort stage for the second stage off the coast of Ireland. Standing by for a second engine cutoff.
Impact shutdown. Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
And in case you didn't
And there
know,
we heard,
SpaceX Dragon, copy.
this is their second
there we
shot
heard
at this.
confirmation
Launch
of,
escape system disarmed.
good
The mission
confirmation
was
of orbital insertion. Cruise
scrubbed
is now
on
well
Wednesday.
on their way to the International
They had a
Space
problem with a
Station
hydraulic
following
arm.
9.5-minute flight uphill.
Now, the second stage is preparing for Dragon separation here, which should happen shortly, in about 10-15 seconds is what we're expecting. Now we're preparing for stabilizing the second stage so that we can have a smooth separation.
And thank you to John from
And
Alberta.
there, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen. The crowd is going wild.
For keeping us up to
There
date on
your
this
screen, you can see
today
that
so that
Dragon separation.
we were
That
right
second
on
stage
cue
making its
to
way.
bring this to you tonight live.
Dragon is now flying free.
SpaceX Dragon, copy.
10 minutes into today's flight, that was about a minute after we had that second engine cutoff and orbital insertion. It looks like a good separation, good rates. Dragon now flying free. There on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see some first images of Crew 10 inside the Dragon Endurance spacecraft as they're now successfully in orbit.
Dragon, SpaceX, Chief Engineer on Countdown 1. On behalf of the entire Falcon team, we thank you for flying with Falcon and wish you a great mission. Over to LD.
It was an honor flying with you this evening. We wish you well on your journey and give Crew 9 our best. Thank you for flying SpaceX.
Welcome to the future.
SpaceX Dragon, this is Crew 10 Commander Ann McLean. Thank you to all of the teams from across the world who contributed to the launch today. Spaceflight is tough, but humans are tougher. Days like today are made possible only when people choose to do the harder right over the easier wrong. Build relationships, choose cooperation, and believe in the inherent goodness of all people across the world. To my family and friends, without you, I would not be here. Explore boldly, live gracefully, go Crew 10. And over to pilot Nicole Ayers.
Good words.
Pilot Nicole Ayers again. We're not the first humans to get to orbit, and we wouldn't be here without the bravery and hard work of those who have paved the way for human spaceflight. We now get the unique perspective of Earth without borders and get to revel in the connectedness of humanity. I would be remiss to not once again acknowledge those who helped me get here, to this wonderful view and this perspective, to the teachers, coaches, fellow officers, fellow teammates, Raptor Nation, to my friends and family that encouraged my dreams from the start. Thank you. I wouldn't be here without you.
This is Mission Specialist Takuya Onishi. I want to say a huge thank you to NASA and SpaceX, especially the Falcon 9 team for the successful launch, and we are looking forward to a smooth ride to the International Space Station. 日本の皆さん、たくさんの応援ありがとうございます。9年ぶりの無重力の感覚をかみしめてます。これから先の ISS への宇宙の旅、楽しんでいきたいと思います。I will now hand the mic over to Mission Specialist Kirill.
Thanks a lot to NASA and SpaceX for this wonderful ride, and I want to say a couple of words in Russian. Пользуясь такой чудесной возможностью, хочу поздравить с 65-летием со дня начала подготовки первого отряда. И также хочу сказать спасибо большое за те знания и жизненный опыт, который мной были получены в тех стенах для того, чтобы выполнить этот полет. А также спасибо школе номер 14 города Назарова, Ульяновскому высшему авиационному училищу гражданской авиации и авиакомпании МКАР и Нордвинд, где я начинал свой путь в небо. И, конечно же, спасибо большое семье и за поддержку.
So, I would say that's a success, at least thus far. Stay with me. We have a lot to unpack tonight. Mark Carney sworn in as Canada's new Prime Minister today. And Donald Trump begs Vladimir Putin for mercy. And we'll go to the phones, I think. So, stay with me. Lots to share.
Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Okay, Mark Carney is Canada's new Prime Minister. Sworn in earlier today, and this is how it happened.
Moi, Mark Carney, je jure solennellement et sincèrement que j'agirai en fidèle et loyal serviteur de Sa Majesté le Roi Charles III, en ma qualité de membre du Conseil privé de Sa Majesté pour le Canada. J'exprimerai fidèlement, honnêtement et en toute vérité mon sentiment et mon opinion sur toutes choses traitées, débattues et résolues en Conseil. Je tiendrai secret tout ce qui me confie ou révélé en cette qualité, ou tout ce dont il sera traité secrètement en Conseil. J'agirai en toutes circonstances comme il convient à une fidèle et loyale serviteur de Sa Majesté. I, Mark Carney, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I shall be a true and faithful servant to His Majesty King Charles III, as a member of His Majesty's Privy Council for Canada. I will, in all things, to be treated, debated, and resolved in Privy Council, faithfully, honestly, and truly declare my mind and my opinion. I shall keep secret all matters committed and revealed to me in this capacity, or that shall be secretly treated of in council. Generally, in all things I shall do as a faithful and true servant ought to do for His Majesty. Moi, Mark Carney, je promets et jure solennellement et sincèrement qu'au mieux de ma compétence et de ma connaissance, j'écouterai loyalement et fidèlement les pouvoirs et je m'acquitterai des responsabilités qui m'ont été confiées en qualité de Premier ministre. I, Mark Carney, do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear that I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trust reposed in me as Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister and the Governor General and the Clerk of the Privy Council are signing the oath books to formally witness the swearing-in of the Prime Minister, but they're also signing the instruments of advice nominating the new Canadian minister. Congratulations, Prime Minister. Et maintenant que la gouverneure générale a signifié son approbation, nous procéderons à l'assermentation du 30e Conseil des ministres canadiens. The ministers and ministers designate will please come forward to be sworn in. Les ministres et les ministres désignés sont priés de s'avancer pour prêter serment. L'honorable Dominique Leblanc, ministre du Commerce international et des Affaires intergouvernementales et président du Conseil privé du roi pour le Canada, the Honorable Dominique Leblanc, Minister of International Trade and Intergovernmental Affairs and President of the King's Privy Council for Canada.
Okay, so we're not going to go through all of that. He has appointed a smaller cabinet. We have LeBlanc moving from Minister of Finance to Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Champagne becomes the finance minister. Chrystia Freeland becomes, is it transportation? And I have to look up the rest. My memory is a little foggy on the same faces put into different positions. But that's okay. You get the idea. Smaller cabinet. He seems to be kind of trying to pull people into a smaller group as Carney prepares his team to deal with Donald Trump on this tariff issue and the 51st state issue. Following his swearing in, he went straight to a news conference.
It is my honor to respond to the Governor General's request that I form a government. And it's a solemn duty to serve as Prime Minister at this time of great consequence for our country. The ceremony we just witnessed reflects the wonder of a country built on the bedrock of three peoples: Indigenous, French, and British. The opening and closing prayers evoke the original stewards of this land. They remind us of the deep roots from which we grow and underscore the values to which we aspire. The office of the Governor General links us through the Crown and across time to Canada's proud British heritage. Et la cérémonie s'est déroulée dans nos deux langues officielles. Notre identité bilingue nous rend uniques et la langue française enrichit la culture. On these foundations, Canadians have built a dynamic nation that celebrates its diversity, that cares for the vulnerable in society, and that always strives for a better tomorrow. Ce nouveau cabinet est pleinement conscient de nos responsabilités pour renforcer les fondations de notre nation durant cette crise et pour bâtir un Canada encore meilleur. J'ai le plaisir de vous présenter l'équipe extraordinaire et qualifiée qui servira au sein de mon gouvernement et qui défendra les valeurs qui nous tiennent au cœur. Notre gouvernement changera notre façon de travailler, se concentrera sur l'essentiel et adoptera une approche axée sur l'action pour relever les défis devant lesquels nous faisons face. Canada's new government is changing how we work so we can deliver better results faster to all Canadians. We have new ministers with new ideas, ready to respond to new threats and to seize new opportunities. Canada's new government is focused on the things that matter most to Canadians: growing more higher-paying jobs, improving affordability, and making Canada more secure. Canada's new government will be action-oriented, driven by a smaller but highly experienced team made to meet the moment we are in. Our leaner cabinet will focus on two priorities in particular. First, protecting Canadian workers and their families in the face of unjustified foreign trade actions. And second, growing this great country by putting more money in Canadians' pockets, by ensuring that government spends less so Canada can invest more, by building millions of homes, by making Canada a superpower in both conventional and clean energies, by creating new trade corridors with reliable partners, and by forging one Canadian economy out of 13. We will relentlessly pursue this positive agenda because Canadians know that negativity isn't strength. They know that negativity won't pay the rent or the mortgage. The negativity won't bring down the price of groceries. Negativity won't win a trade war. We know that by building together, we can give ourselves far more than anyone else can take away. nous sommes maîtres chez nous. Notre pays est Canada fort et notre gouvernement est uni et fort. Nous commencerons immédiatement avec notre première réunion du cabinet. Our country is Canada strong. Our government is united and strong. And we will immediately get to work with our first cabinet meeting as soon as I respond to a few of your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Nous allons maintenant passer à une période de questions de 15 minutes. On va prendre une question suivie. We'll now do a 15-minute question period, one question, one follow-up. Merci.
Les bons Filion de TVA. Bonjour, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Juste ici.
Okay.
Enchanté. Vous allez vous rendre en Europe au cours des prochains jours. Est-ce que vous comptez également aller aux États-Unis, rencontrer
Received the questions on a trip to Paris and London in a few days. I received an invitation from the President of France to discuss a variety of issues, both economic, commercial, to reinforce those relationships, also issues related to security in Europe, in Canada. Similar discussions will be had with the Prime Minister in the United Kingdom. This is sensible. Security is a priority for this government, reinforcing our security, as is diversifying our trading and commercial relationships. Of course, with both Europe and the United Kingdom, there are many opportunities. And as I said a moment ago in my remarks, there are historic ties. With respect to the President, I don't have plans to go to the United States. I look forward to speaking to him at the appropriate moment. Thank you.
Monsieur Carney, il y a Monsieur Rubio, Marco Rubio, ce matin dans Charlevoix. Il a essentiellement répété les propos de Donald Trump, selon qui le Canada, économiquement, serait mieux en tant que 51e État.
C'est ridicule.
En tant que Premier ministre, qu'est-ce que vous répondez à ces propos du secrétaire d'État américain tenus en sol canadien?
Ah. C'est fou, hein? C'est fou. C'est simple, c'est fou. Point final.
English, please, sir. En anglais?
It's crazy. His point is crazy. That's it.
Question.
Yeah.
Hi, Prime Minister Tom Perry with CBC. Can I ask you what your plans are for the next few weeks? Are you going to be bringing back the House? Are you going to be calling an early election? And if so, when should Canadians expect to go to the polls?
Well, they certainly should expect to go to the polls before November. The news today is behind me. An exceptional group of individuals who are serving Canada, united, focused cabinet, focused on action, focused on the issues for Canadians. We're, as I said a moment ago, we will be going to take some decisions which directly meet some of the objectives I set out in my remarks and we've been discussing. That's the news for today. There will be other news in the coming days with respect to ensuring that we have as strong a mandate that is needed for the time. Thank you.
And when you're in Europe, are you going to be seeking assurances from Canada's allies that this country will never become America's 51st state? And when would it be an appropriate time for you to take that message to the U.S. president?
Well, I've been clear. Personally, I've been clear. The ministers behind me, I think, to an individual, when asked, have been clear that we will never, ever, in any way, shape, or form, be part of the United States. America is not Canada. Look at the ceremony we just had. You could not have had that ceremony. You would not have that ceremony in America. Look at the cabinet behind me. You would not have that cabinet in America. You do not have that cabinet in America. We are a very fundamentally different country. So irrespective of any issues economically, fundamentally to our core, to our identity, c'est une des raisons, is one reason why we have a minister, and I will thank Mr. Guilbeault to be our Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture and bringing in all those aspects and reinforcing them. So before we get to the economics of it, we won't be part of it. And when we get to the economics, then the President is a successful business person and deal maker. We're his largest client in so many industries.
as the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Industry, Monsieur Leblanc and Monsieur Champagne have made this point, and clients expect respect and working together in a proper commercial way. So the nature of Canada means we won't. The economics means we shouldn't. And what you will see from this government is focusing on building here at home, building with different partners abroad, and that will reinforce the point. It's good. We're doing it for our own reasons, to be clear, for our own people, for the high-paying jobs. But eventually, the truth will out, and the Americans will understand as well. Thank you.
Our allies, sir. Do you want to?
No, I don't think we need. I don't think we need to hear it from. Nous sommes maîtres. We're masters in our home. We're in charge. You know, we're in charge. It's always nice when people say nice things about you, but we don't need it. We're not seeking it. What the discussions I will have on behalf of the government in Paris and in London will relate to opportunities that both our countries share, as well as our shared history.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, Valérie Gamache de Radio-Canada, enchantée.
Yes, okay.
Vous n'avez pas de ministre qui vienne de l'Alberta.
All right, so did you see what he did there? He just shut it down. And rightly so. Treat it like a non-starter. Because we are not seeking it. Melanie Joly, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, hosting the G7, and Marco Rubio, Secretary of State in Quebec, wrapping things up today. And this is Melanie Joly here. Let's pick her up at this news conference.
And looking at the Russian reaction. So ultimately, the ball is now in Russia's court when it comes to Ukraine. So I'm ready to answer all of your questions. And so, Bella, you're the boss. OK, allons-y.
Bonjour, Madame Joly.
Allô, Alain.
Alors, une journée particulière aujourd'hui, nouveau chef, nouveau premier ministre assermenté. Qu'est-ce que ça va changer?
So we'll get to the English. And here we go.
Le secrétaire d'État américain Marco Rubio et moi sommes entendus.
In English, please.
So, of course, new Prime Minister, a new dynamic, and I look forward to being able to support Prime Minister Carney and his work on Canada-US. What I can say is I've already mentioned to Secretary Rubio that it was important to be able to organize a call between the President and the Prime Minister, and I know that we're working to do that in the next couple of days.
Good morning, Madame Joly. If on your meeting with Marco Rubio, can you provide us with any information about how that meeting went? What was discussed? And did you receive any indication that Canada could get concessions at any point on tariffs?
Okay, so a couple of things. We had a very long conversation, the Secretary and I. I wanted to be able to have a frank conversation with him. Of course, Canada's sovereignty is not up for debate, and we had a long conversation on tariffs and trade. The approach when it comes to a relationship with the U.S., and through my conversation with the Secretary, was we will put maximum pressure on the Americans. And meanwhile, we'll work on finding off-ramps. Because we know ultimately, at the end of the day, the Trump tariffs are going to hurt Americans. And so that's our message, and that's our approach. And meanwhile, I think that on many different issues, what Secretary Rubio and I have been able to agree on was we won't let things that we don't agree on stop us to agree on other things. And that was the essence also of the meeting that was happening here. We know that we're living in a dangerous world. We know that there are so many different issues we need to solve, particularly the issue linked to Ukraine, the Middle East, the rise of China, etc. So that's why I think we were able to actually cover many different issues, but at least be able to say that we will be keeping our relationship and make sure that we continue to talk. J'ai eu une très bonne conversation avec le secrétaire d'État américain, une longue conversation. On s'est entendu, bien entendu, que...
Okay, let's just put an end to that. And too much for air. I just happened to open this window and I'm just seeing in the chat. And I just have to say, I have to say I'm really at a point where I'm tired of the crap in the chat. I'm just tired overall of the stupidity that's out there, and it's time to cut the crap. So, too much for air. If you have something to say about my wife, since you brought her up, say it now. I mean, I know we are at war, and I'm trying to be tolerant and give people their free speech, but I'm tired of the stupidity, and this is supposed to be a forum for discussion, not for crap. Okay, fair enough. Stay in the guardrails because you're dangerously close. A lot of people have used up all of their goodwill with me, and it takes a long time and a lot to push me to the point where I push back, but I will. And I'm about there. Back to the news. Interesting medium, this social media. Marco Rubio, let's go to the clip of him at the G7 at his news conference, wrapping things up today. This is what he had to say when asked about the 51st state issue. And this is what prompted, in part, this is part of what prompted Carney's response today, that saying that Trump's annexation plan and the way Marco Rubio responded today is crazy.
Do you understand why the Canadians are taking such umbrage at these comments coming from the president? Is that something?
The Canadian government has made their position, how they feel about it, clear. The president has made his argument as to why he thinks Canada would be better off joining the United States for economic purposes. There's a disagreement between the president's position and the position of the Canadian government. I don't think that's a mystery coming in, and it wasn't a topic of conversation because that's not what the summit was about.
Mr. Secretary,
simple as that. So, I don't think that Carney was off base at all, just shutting it down like that. It's a pretty strong way to respond to a threat against Canadian sovereignty, regardless of what political stripe you might wear. And he is a smart man, he's intelligent, and he's strong. So Mr. Trump has his work cut out for him as he begins this new relationship with Canada through the new Prime Minister. And somebody asking, how is this democracy? Well, it is democracy. It's democracy in process. And we have a parliamentary system. And they just went through a leadership review. And now it looks like we will be going to the polls to have an election fairly soon. And that is because even when you become the prime minister by simply winning the leadership of a party, as Mark Carney just did, you do not get, there are restrictions on what you can do as prime minister. So without holding a seat as a member of parliament, because he hasn't been elected to office yet, he's not actually allowed to sit in the House as an MP. So he can't really participate in things like question period. That creates a very strong incentive for him to call an election, or at least go into a by-election to win a seat, so that he can then have the full functionality of the office of prime minister. And he's not the first prime minister to take that position in this manner through this kind of process. Other prime ministers who have gone through that or have acquired the office in that way: Arthur Meighen in 1920, Louis Saint Laurent in 1948, Liberal Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Justin's father, in 1968. He won the Liberal Party leadership against Lester B. Pearson. John Turner, who I knew, in 1984. He also took office as Prime Minister, taking over from Trudeau when Trudeau announced his resignation, and then Turner won the Liberal leadership contest and then called an election very shortly thereafter. Kim Campbell, Canada's very first woman Prime Minister, in 1993. Some of you may be old enough to remember. I certainly do. That's how she became Prime Minister. Again, went to the polls very shortly thereafter. Very shortly after. And lost miserably. It was a rout. The Conservatives just got kicked to the curb, lost party status even. Paul Martin Jr., who I also knew, and I met his father, in 2003 succeeded Jean Chrétien, and now Mark Carney. And in pretty much every case there, they assumed the leadership, became prime minister, and then elections were called very shortly afterward. And that is part of the process. It doesn't, obviously not every prime minister becomes prime minister in that way, but that is the case here. Not to say that it isn't a democracy, it certainly is. And the prime minister has far less power than the president does in the United States. And in fact, if you want to talk about a country that doesn't actually have a democracy, talk to anybody who really knows how the governmental system in the United States works, and they will tell you that the United States doesn't actually have a democracy, not a true democracy, because it doesn't have proportional representation. They have the Electoral College, and so a lot of people argue that it's not really a true democracy. And you can see that the President of the United States has, I would say, disproportionate power and can rule the entire country and even circumnavigate other levels of government with the stroke of a Sharpie. If you think that's a better system, well, I guess you can move to the U.S. But certainly here, the people actually have a more prominent voice through this parliamentary system, in spite of all of the things you're being told to the contrary, which are really just designed to undermine your confidence and trust in government, because there are people who would very much like for this country to blow apart so that we can become the 51st state. And that appears to be what their objective has been for quite some time, certainly over the past, say, 10 years. And as all that is going on, we have Pierre Poilievre and the other opposition leaders reacting to Carney's appointment today. Is swearing in as Prime Minister. Here's Pierre Poilievre saying that the Liberals are trying to fool you. And I certainly understand what he's talking about.
Gives me a chance to state the Conservative mission to put Canada first, to take back control of our economy, and become a sovereign, self-reliant, and stronger nation, to stare down American economic aggression and better stand on our own 2 feet, to bring home Canada's promise that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful home on a safe street, protected by solid borders and brave troops under a proud flag. That's our mission. But today I'd like to begin by congratulating, I should begin by wishing Mr. Trudeau a happy retirement and all the best to his family, and congratulating Mr. Trudeau's economic advisor, Mark Carney, on becoming Prime Minister only 3 months after he moved his headquarters out of Canada to New York, moving jobs away from Canada. Today, Liberals are trying to trick Canadians into electing them for a 4th term in power, with a cabinet that is 87% the same as Trudeau's cabinet. 100% of today's Liberal cabinet were in Justin Trudeau's Liberal caucus. These same Liberal MPs voted to hike the carbon tax, double the debt, double food bank lineups, and double housing costs. The same Liberals all supported blocking pipelines, LNG plants, and passing the anti-energy law C-69 that has made Canada even more reliant on the U.S. Stephen Guilbeault, for example, the radical anti-development activist twice arrested for climbing buildings illegally to block resource projects, a self-described, and I quote, socialist, has been promoted to be the minister responsible for all of Quebec, but also responsible, according to Mr. Carney, for nature. That means nothing will get built anywhere in Canada because he will be standing in the way. Meanwhile, all of Trudeau's Liberal advisors, Gerald Butts and Tom Pitfield, are now top Carney advisors. They were in attendance today, not even hiding that they're still the ones running the show. The same people who ran Justin Trudeau are now running Mark Carney. Carney's chief of staff, his Liberal chief of staff, is a former Trudeau minister forced to resign for many scandals, including lying about moving Paul Bernardo out of a maximum security prison. You see, Mark Carney thinks Canadians are stupid. He thinks that a little bit of cosmetic surgery will allow the Liberals to disguise who they are and make people forget what they did for 10 years in order to elect them to a 4th Liberal term. But it's the same Liberal gang with the same Liberal agenda, the same Liberal results, and the same Liberal promises of the last 10 years. Only they want you to be fooled, and they want to take 4 terms. Carbon tax Carney will try later today to pull another fast one. This one's going to be very sneaky, very sneaky. I call it the carbon tax con job. I told you this was going to happen, by the way. Don't say I didn't warn you. He's going to hide the consumer carbon tax for 60 days. And if he's reelected, he'll bring it back bigger than ever with no rebate. Let's be clear. He says that the carbon tax he intends to bring in after the election will be a, quote, shadow carbon tax. And we know that he loves carbon taxes because he publicly advised Trudeau over the last 5 years to raise the taxes even more. But here's what I've got. This is the Liberal carbon tax law. This law cannot be eliminated unless Parliament resumes to vote it down. Mr. Carney could have asked Trudeau to do that months ago. Mr. Carney could have reconvened Parliament today to vote this law down, but he won't. He will keep the carbon tax law in place even while he temporarily hides the carbon tax from the gas pump for 60 days leading up to the election. And after that election, if God forbid he were reelected, there would be a bigger carbon tax than ever before, because Carney would no longer need your vote, but he'd still need your money. Canadians know that over 10 years, the Trudeau-Carney Liberals doubled the debt, doubled housing costs, and doubled food bank lineups. They've made us weak facing the Americans. Giving the Liberals a fourth term will not change any of that. If you cannot afford food or a home after 3 terms of Liberals, nothing will change after 4. If you're worried Canada is drowning in debt and taxes after 3 terms of these Liberals, That will not change after a fourth term. If you're afraid of crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder, after 3 terms of these Liberals, nothing will change after the fourth term. If you are a senior choosing between heating and eating after 3 terms of Liberals, nothing will change after a fourth term. And if you're worried that Canada can't get anything built and that our economy has become helpless and dependent on the Americans after 3 terms of the Liberals, that will not change after a fourth term. And it certainly will not change with a heavily conflicted Prime Minister who already sold out Canada to move his headquarters to the U.S. only days after President Trump threatened tariffs to steal our jobs. Carney put himself first. Conservatives will put Canada first. Putting Canada first means taking back control of our economy and relaunching our industries. It means confronting President Trump to his face, hitting back with counter tariffs, but it also means making Canada stronger at home. It'll mean bringing in a massive, beautiful, patriotic, bring-it-home tax cut on work, investment, energy, home building, and making stuff in Canada. A tax cut that will allow you to get ahead through your own hard work with lower income tax. We will cut bureaucracy, debt, and taxes. We'll take GST off homes so that you can save up to 50 grand while we incentivize municipalities to speed up permits, free up land, and cut development charges. We'll axe the carbon tax forever, for good, and for real. We'll also repeal liberal laws like the No New Pipelines Act, C-69, and instead grant rapid permission to our companies to build more pipelines, more natural gas exports, more data centers, mines, and other natural resources to bring home powerful paychecks and production to our people. We will carry out the biggest crackdown on crime and drugs in Canadian history. Our borders will be secured and our military will be strong. We will be self-reliant, sovereign, and stand on our own 2 feet as we stand up to the Americans. To stand up for ourselves, we will reward work, unleash entrepreneurs, harvest resources, make our own goods, trade with each other, build homes for our youth, rebuild our borders and military, honor our history, and raise our flag to restore Canada's promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful home, on a safe street, protected by solid borders and brave troops under a proud Canadian flag. Canada first. Let's bring it home.
Thank you. We'll now take questions on the floor.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Conservatives in a bit of a pinch, I would say. The truth of the matter is, he's right. Somebody asked me about this the other day, about the Liberals maybe getting rid of the carbon tax, and that's what Carney did today. That was the first thing he did. The first action he took is it appeared he got rid of the carbon tax, but not really. In order to really get rid of it, he has to have Parliament come back, and because Parliament isn't sitting, what he did was he signed paperwork that leaves it on the books, but they won't actually collect it. So it takes the carbon tax to zero, but the carbon tax is still there. So they won't be collecting it. And then he says that the rebates will continue, even though they're not collecting the tax, but any rebates that go out will still continue for the next fiscal quarter. But this means that as soon as the House comes back or after the election, they can go right back to it, re-implement it, and bring it back even at a different rate if they want to. So it's a bit of a sleight of hand, or you could take him at face value and think that maybe he won't bring it back, or maybe they'll take it off the books afterward, or they'll just leave it sitting at zero and leave the budget in place the way it is otherwise. But I kind of doubt that, because it skews all the numbers in the budget as soon as they axe a tax in the way that he just did, and that affects the revenue stream in the budget. So somebody asked me, as I said, in a phone call about a week ago, and I said, well, any government that says they're getting rid of a tax, like any government They rarely ever mean that. So even if he does get rid of it, which he appeared to, they'll probably just bring it back after they're elected, if they're elected. But the Liberals have their set of problems, but the Conservatives have theirs as well. And this Canada First slogan, that's a problem for them now. I don't think that is a winning campaign message, given the new political environment we are in, where our sovereignty is being threatened by a president whose entire political campaign and his theme even now is America first. And to use that phrase now, when patriotism on the Canadian side has become an issue and a rallying call, he is using a phrase on the Canadian side now, the Conservatives are that makes it look like they're sort of the same thing on the other side of the border. And I don't think that will resonate with voters. And that's just a marketing analysis. I don't think it's a winning message. I don't know if they have enough time to pivot. I think they should go back to the drawing board on their messaging as they head into this next election. And that means all new signage. It means everything that they have done to sort of reinforce that message through all of their advertising and all of their social media efforts, everything. It really loses its sizzle in this environment that is becoming increasingly heated. So that's a serious problem, that messaging. The Liberals, on the other hand, they have their issues as well, and they are bringing still a lot of baggage with them because they still have Freeland in there. You still have the same cabinet ministers. You still have the legacy of the Trudeau government attached to them. And even though Carney is sort of coming in as a fresh face, people, I don't think they see him as an outsider. And people are asking in the chat tonight about Mark Carney and why would he even be allowed to run because he hasn't lived in Canada for like 10 years or whatever. I understand, but at the same time, he is a Canadian. He was born in the Northwest Territories, grew up in Edmonton, went to school here, grew up here, was the Bank of Canada governor, then moved to England and was the Bank of England the governor of the Bank of England. He has the credentials, he has the education, he has the experience. And when we're dealing with economic issues, he certainly understands them. Of course, a lot of people very concerned about his commitments and his grounding in progressive politics, woke ideology, environmentalism, and his apparent love of carbon taxes, which I totally get. So, and I think Pierre Poilievre is right on the money when he says they'll just bring it back. They may even just rename it, which is often what they do. They're not the only government to do that or the only party. So it's good window dressing, but by taking that issue today and addressing it by telling Canadians that he has eliminated the carbon tax, that's the other problem the Conservatives have now, is that is the issue they were going to fight this election on, which is axe the tax, and he just lost that, at least in the minds of the majority of Canadians. So the Conservatives are now, from a messaging and campaign marketing perspective, they're searching. They're going to have to reorient, reconfigure, and regroup in order to deal with this in an effective way. Jagmeet Singh, NDP, he isn't doing that well either as the leader of his party. And I think they are trying to find their footing as well in this environment. The Liberals have scored the biggest points, I would say, overall. Completely closing the gap. It's virtually a dead heat now between the Liberals and the Conservatives in the polls. And And Jagmeet Singh reacting today to Carney's swearing in.
So what we saw today with the cabinet selection really shows you the priorities of Mark Carney at a time when people are really worried. There's a lot of fear, there's resilience and strength, but a lot of worry about the cost of living already being high and a trade war increasing it. People are worried about losing their jobs. And what Mark Carney has shown is that he has not made a priority a lot of the people in our country. Women, there's no minister related to issues impacting women, youth, people living with disabilities, people with diversity. He's also notably, and this is one of the most notable things, he does not have a minister for labor. Even Stephen Harper had a minister for labor. At a time when we do not have a plan for workers if they lose their job, 60% of workers are not covered by EI. He doesn't have a minister for labor. Now you might say it's just a name. Well, the name means something. He's signifying clearly that he is not interested or not prioritizing labor, unions, workers. That is very problematic to me. He's also showing us his plan. His plan is to ignore the plight of working people and to have a tax cut for millionaires, to cut services and cut workers. That is not the right plan for Canadians. Also notably, Karina Gould is not in cabinet, and that's sending a message to progressive Liberals that there's no place for you in this new Liberal Party with Mark Carney at the head. We're going to continue to fight for workers. We're going to continue to fight for supports for those workers. I'll do that in French and then I'll do it.
Okay. So that is Jagmeet Singh, who also, I believe, is calling for Donald Trump to be prevented from coming into the country in the future, and even for that upcoming G7 summit in June, which will be out in Alberta. The one that just took place in Charlevoix, Quebec, where we just heard from Melanie Joly and Marco Rubio. That was for foreign affairs ministers. And of course, the topic front and center, top of mind there was Ukraine. And here's Rubio talking about this very thing, and then we're going to get to what Donald Trump had to say today about the meeting between Putin and his special envoy over in Moscow. And here's Rubio again.
Do you trust Putin?
I think it's an irrelevant question. I think in foreign policy, it's not about trusting, it's about action. It's about things that you do. So in the end, on something like this, you can't just say you want peace, you have to do peace. And that's true for both sides in any conflict. So in any war and any engagement. So I think ultimately all these things, I would just encourage you guys, if we're going to be serious about foreign policy, to sort of navigate away from some of this is not a reality show, this is not about personalities, this is very simple. You either do things or you don't. There are things you are doing and things you're not doing. And that's what foreign policy is driven by, and that's how our decisions should be driven by. So unfortunately, in foreign policy, oftentimes you will have to work with, I'm not talking about President Putin in particular, I'm talking about generally, you will have to work with people you don't like in foreign policy. And oftentimes you will have disagreements with people you like. Sometimes you will have to figure out how to work together with nations that are not aligned with you on most issues. And in some other cases, you may find yourself unaligned on an issue with a nation that you work with very closely on a bunch of other things. That's not just now true today. That has been true throughout the history of mankind and certainly the relations between nation states. So I think it's important. I get there's this temptation to cover foreign policy the way we cover domestic policy and the way we cover other things in our society. But foreign policy is about nation states pursuing what they have interpreted to be in their national interest. And balancing that is what the art of diplomacy and the work of foreign policy is all about. And so we need to sort of be mature and open-eyed and realistic without losing our idealism, without losing what we hope the world will look like and want to shape it and be a part of. But by the same token, we have to make pragmatic decisions every single day, and that's not true today. That's always been true. Always.
Okay. And Donald Trump, very interesting today. He posted, let me see if I can find this. He basically was begging Vladimir Putin for mercy for Ukrainian soldiers. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, I think it's over here. Okay. There it is there. Let me show you this. He posted this, I believe, on Truth Social, shared it over on Twitter, or at least some people picked it up and reposted over there. Here we go. And there it is. We had a very good and productive discussions with President Vladimir Putin of Russia yesterday, and there is a very good chance that this horrible bloody war can finally come to an end. But at this very moment, thousands of Ukrainian troops are completely surrounded by the Russian military and in a very bad and vulnerable position. I have strongly requested to President Putin that their lives be spared. This would be a horrible massacre, one not seen since World War II. God bless them all. This blows my mind. The reason they're surrounded is because the U.S., on the instructions of Donald Trump, withdrew support. They withdrew military intelligence and surveillance. As a result, the troops in Kursk did not have the intelligence on the ground that they needed that allowed them to kind of keep track of troop movements on the Russian side. As soon as they pulled the intelligence sharing, it allowed the Russians to move their troops through the pipelines, come in behind in a sneak attack, and flank the Ukrainians, and basically just about encircle them, leaving them only one path of exit back over to the Ukrainian border. And many of them were slaughtered. That is because of the actions of Donald Trump. And now he's posting that, asking Vladimir Putin to have mercy on the Ukrainian soldiers that he sold out and abandoned, turned his back on them, just long enough to allow the Russians to execute this military operation in Kursk and massacre a good portion of the soldiers who were there, and the survivors, the ones who are still in there, trying to get out. He's now asking Putin to have mercy on them. They would not have been in that position if not for the President of the United States. That's a pretty accurate assessment. Doesn't matter what your position on the war is. I don't think I have never come across a situation where I've seen a U.S. president do that to a country that has been assured through promises that there would be support and that they would be a partner and ally. I'll just stop there because it's just appalling to have something like that happen. Here's Trump today, and I'll tell you, if he's not on the Russian payroll, he deserves to be, because here again, with this statement being picked up by RT, Russian state media, it's exactly what they want him to say. He's just regurgitating the Russian talking points.
His respect for this country. And I think we've had some very good results. So, I haven't been able to say that to anybody else. I haven't wanted to say it until just before I came here. I got some pretty good news. So, but we have to see what happens. It's still a long way to go. The fighting is unbelievable. Russia has a large group of Ukrainian soldiers, as we speak, surrounded and in grave danger. They've been able to surround them. They're
because of
danger.
you.
Biden should have never let this war happen.
It's Biden's fault.
First of all,
now, because of what you
don't
did.
want to pick on somebody that's a lot larger than you, even with the money. There's a lot of money that we gave them and a lot of equipment. We make the best military equipment in the world, but even with all of that, it's unbelievable.
So you see, this is what the propagandists do with a clip like that. they're using that clip to make it sound like he's saying that Ukraine started the war. But you could also interpret that as him saying Ukraine shouldn't have gone into Russia to seize that territory to try to use as a bargaining chip in the upcoming peace negotiations. And that's really what I think the context was there. But of course, the way it's clipped, it could be interpreted as him saying that Ukraine started the war, which Trump actually has said, and then contradicted himself and said it the other way. But when you say it, then it gets picked up by Russian state media, and then they propagandize that, propagate it, and it spreads, and now it looks like he's on the Russian side. And just by saying that and not choosing his words carefully, or maybe very carefully, in order to give them something, this is what you get. Which is, again, why they really should put him on the payroll, if he's not already. Because he just did their job for them. And you've even seen Russian state media in the last month. There have been articles out there saying that Donald J. Trump is carving up the world into chunks and weakening Western alliances, which is something that was the goal of Russia. And I'm paraphrasing what the media has been saying, and they're saying Trump has been doing it for Russia. So, the strangest of times, to be sure. And again, that's not even me editorializing. That's just me telling you what has been said and by various people on that topic. Well, I am editorializing, or maybe joking a little bit, maybe about him maybe getting paid. Yeah, that they should pay him. You know what I'm saying. What else do we have here? I think that's pretty much the highlights of today's news. So we have a little bit of time. I think it's about time we can go to the phones. So let me get that set up. And we've got a new song, too, to share with you at the end of the broadcast tonight. But before we get to that, we're going to get to the phones, and here's the number to call to join the conversation tonight. Okay, Mavericks, it's call-in time. Join the conversation. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Exercise your right to free speech. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you. Okay, and I'm still getting the phone lines set up here tonight. It's not quite open yet. Give me just a minute longer, and I will be back on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back. And I'll put the number on the screen for you to call tonight. There it is on the bottom. Before I do that, if you are inclined... Okay, we got a call coming in. You can donate to support the show, cover the bills at freedomreporters.com. And you can call in to join the conversation at 1-647-734-4220 and then hit the PIN number 860-075-764 followed by the pound sign when prompted. And okay, letting some people into this call now. There we go. And we have two people on the line. I think John from Alberta is there.
Good evening, Mavericks. Rimby John.
Hello, sir. And who else is on the line with us?
Trumpinator.
Trumpinator. Well, welcome to the program, sir. Why don't you start, Trumpinator?
I just wanted to say, if Canada ever becomes part of the United States, I think all the people in Quebec should be deported to France.
And why would you say that?
Because Quebec is full of leftists.
Okay, well, I'm not sure that that's terribly helpful, but...
and that would be the only way Canada would ever be acceptable to be a part of the United States.
So you're saying if we became the 51st state, they would have to deport all the people from Quebec because they're leftists?
Yes.
Well, that's probably a reason why Canada won't become the 51st state. A little too left-leaning, I guess. I think we lost John from Alberta.
No, I'm here. That's not really a very nice thing to say. If you're
no, it's not very
Team
nice
Canada,
at all,
my
is
friend.
it? Not very nice at all. Nope. But go ahead there, John. Alberta, Rimby, Scotty, Johnny from Alberta. What do you have to say today?
quite the SpaceX thing, eh? That's pretty exciting.
Was that
eh?
cool? And thank you for alerting me to let me know that that was happening right off the top of the broadcast. It was cool to bring that to people. I think that it was very, if you'll excuse the pun, uplifting.
Well, I just stumbled on it, my friend. You know, like I do. I'm kind of working in the background, you know, for you always. But yeah, I thought that was looked pretty fun, eh?
Yeah, I thought that was just wicked to watch that, and the re-entry of the rocket landing on the pad, and just amazing stuff. I have to give them credit for all that.
It's really quite amazing. Well, Rick, you had a little bit of a bone to pick with me about my comment on my American friends being rapacious capitalists.
Oh, right.
You were finger pointing something on that I was maybe incorrect about.
I just, not so much a bone to pick, more about I just think that the phrase rapacious capitalist maybe isn't accurate, an accurate way to describe what you have going on in the White House. I think it's more that it's they're corporatists or maybe neo-corporatists in so much as, because they're really they're not capitalists in the true sense. They're more like oligarchs. And when I say oligarchs, the way I would define that is really, really rich people who control, major industries within the economy, and they are directly connected to government through the bureaucracy, and therefore they have, unprecedented levels of control and influence over the economy and government both. And so it is even not just a form of economic fascism, it's a hybrid version of that. It is this neo-corporatism where you have major corporations controlled by the wealthiest of people like Elon Musk and all the tech bros and just others who feed at the public trough of government subsidies, handouts, and actually control government policy, and they're so entrenched into the system of government that they can actually control the system and even go after some of their competitors. It's I think a very dangerous time, and so they're not rapacious or greedy, being another word for rapacious. Not just greedy capitalists. This is a whole different level and a whole different thing. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. Little Marco Rubio baby didn't have too terribly much to say about the 51st state comments at the G7 summit in Quebec, eh?
Yeah, I think that he is very uncomfortable in his role. I don't think he's truly in alignment with everything that Trump does and is doing and his policies. You just have to look back at the things that were said during the leadership race when he was going for the nomination to be the GOP candidate, and when he was squaring off against Trump. And now he has his position as Secretary of State, lots of influence, so he's set up for the future if he does a good job. In the meantime, he has to fall into line and kind of do as he's told, and I don't think he's comfortable with it. You can just see it in his eyes. Nevertheless, on many levels, I think he's selling his soul, because this is not a very conservative government at all. People in the chat tonight saying that I'm way too liberal. No, I'm conservative. I'm just not a conservative in the sense that I'm not just a Trump sycophant. I'm not just a follower. I'm conservative in the very traditional sense of conservatism, but I am not what this has become, because in this new Trump 2.0 administration, this is like a new form of populism that I'm not really comfortable with at all. This is something that is a hybrid, and that's because you're seeing that these Democrats and some libertarians have kind of come in, like RFK Jr. and just a lot of people from the Democrat side that kind of got alienated or kicked out of that party, and they've glommed on to MAGA, and you have this convergence, and it has created this hybrid, weird, populist thing that I saw coming. I've been talking about it for a long time, but I don't really like it because it's going into very dark places, and it's resulting in unprecedented levels of damage, or it will, to both the U.S. and the world economy in the West, the Western world economy for sure. And I think Johnny from Toronto, is that you on the line?
No, it's Kenneth RV.
Oh, RV, welcome back, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to switch up here. I haven't been in your chat here from the beginning. I just kind of jumped in a little late.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your thoughts on Carney taking over and then PP and then us going to election? Do you think we're going to get our election on Monday or what? What do you think?
It looks like he will call the election very soon. That's what I think will happen, unless something really crazy happens in the next couple of days. I think the writ will drop, and we'll be going to the polls in, late April, early May. I think that's what will happen. And I think that I get the the rhetoric that has been out there with people saying Trudeau resigned, but he didn't really resign. He's going to stick around. He won't leave power. He's a narcissist. I kept saying, no, he's not. I'm just tired of the silliness and the stupidity.
Oh, so you don't think that he's a narcissist?
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the people who are telling other people that Trudeau's not leaving. And I'm like, yes, he is. He is leaving, like, at least for a while, because Carney's going to be the prime minister. And that's what happened today. He got sworn in. So, it's just.
I don't think he had the choice at this point, Rick.
No, he didn't have a choice. He had to. He announced it. It was coming, and here we are. So, yeah.
Like, they were not going to do any good with Trudeau, for sure.
Yeah.
And they think by flipping it over, putting a new bow on it, on the Liberals, that, it's going to make some difference. But people still are against the Liberal government. It's not just Trudeau. They're against the entire government. It ain't going to matter in polls.
Yeah, well,
make some difference. It might make some difference, Rick. They might get a few more votes. They might get a few more seats.
Who are the Liberals or the Conservatives?
Yeah, the Liberals.
Yeah, I as I said, I think that the Conservatives might be in trouble because I don't think their messaging. I think their messaging has been stolen. The marketing aspect of it. And they don't have a lot of time to change, right? But I don't know. Like, anything can happen. Politics can turn on a dime, as we've just witnessed.
I don't think so. We've been watching this for a long time. We've been waiting for this election for a long time. And it doesn't matter about the marketing anymore. We just want this government out. And I don't care what the Liberals markets.
Yeah.
The Conservatives are going to take this over, period, because whether they have the old messages or not, all right, we're just tired of the Liberals. They don't want the Liberals anymore. They don't trust the Liberals anymore. They don't trust the NDP. We don't, a lot of us don't even trust the Conservatives.
No, that's right. Yeah.
But at the same time, they are our best choice, just like Trump was.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be an issue with the Conservatives winning unless they pull something like some kind of national emergency or something, and we don't have an election, and they stay in power.
But Canada, RV, Rimby, the Liberals, come on, gentlemen and ladies, it's still a pink pig. You can put a bow on it and red lipstick. It's still a pig. It hasn't changed the colors of it.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the Liberals, yeah.
Yeah, we have another caller on the line, too. Who just joined us?
You're Rick. How are you tonight?
Sorry, who is it? Lori?
Yeah, it's Lori. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, no, I just want to go back against the other two guys that are on the line here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say, yes, we need an election right away. But I think what it comes down to is the Canadians have to make a decision who is going to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump.
Right.
And is it Pierre Poilievre or is it Mark Carney? And let's get her done and then decide who's going to go down there and straighten things out.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of Donald Trump. And I don't think Pierre Poilievre is scared of Donald Trump either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Donald Trump is not the big, powerful person that you think he is. I think he's weak.
He is weak. Yeah, and he's much weaker on this than people think. He's picked a fight with everybody. We're not alone. I keep saying that. So Canada's actually in a pretty good place, I think, with this. What do you think,
Well,
Lauren?
guys, did you see today the New York Stock Exchange? It's down $5 trillion is what I was reading on NBC News. $5 trillion because of Trump picking a fight with everybody around the world.
Yeah.
It's a loss of about $5 trillion in capital, but actually today the market the Dow popped back out up about another 500 points. So has it found a bottom? Have people developed some confidence in Trump? Is it going to continue to go down? I mean, that's the questions we're asking here, right?
Mm-hmm. My guess is we're in for a lot more chaos, and as a result, I think the markets will continue to drop because businesses can't plan. Investments in things are drying up. How do you invest in your business or projects when everything is so uncertain?
Exactly. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
For our economy, for all economies.
Yep. So
in
this
U.S.
bad,
included.
Yeah,
No one wants to invest anywhere until they know what's going on.
Bad news all the way around. Stupid. Really, really stupid. Unbelievably stupid.
That's a very good point, Rex. Who's going to invest in Canada, United States? No way. With all these tariffs on the ground, there's no way that we're even going to be able to do deals. Well, maybe we can do deals with other people. Yes. Okay, but, doing new deals, shipping and arranging everything, all this stuff takes time. It takes a lot of organization as well. And, you got to figure out cost and what are we going to charge for our products? Yeah. All this shit takes time. And, Trump has just thrown this on the entire world. And it's, it's the most crazy thing I've ever seen, Rick. And I know a lot of people might give me a hard time about this, but this is the dumbest thing that any president could ever do and go against the entire world. Now, that's not saying that Trump might not have an agenda. Maybe he does, and maybe, he is trying to help Canada or the rest of the people. Maybe he does, but he's doing it the wrong way. He's ruining relationships. You don't ruin relationships and then expect, to have all the money come back to you. He's destroying.
R.B. Rimby, there was a very different way for this to be handled. Trump keeps saying he doesn't need Alberta oil or lumber or whatever. Well, we'll bring them to the United States to their knees if Canada links arm in arm with Mexico. And the U.S. will cease to exist without the ingredients from Mexico and God bless the great country of Canada.
New caller just came in. Who's with us?
It's Isabel.
Well, hello, Isabel. Welcome back.
Hi, Isabel.
Yeah. Hey, everybody.
Hi, Isabel.
Am I wrong? Somebody sent me something today, and I looked into it. I could be wrong. That the EV plant in Finland went bankrupt?
I don't know. I don't follow a lot of news out of Finland.
I ain't heard about that.
I can check.
But I'm thinking that doesn't look good for Mr. Elon.
Was it a Tesla plant?
Yep.
I haven't heard about that. Not yet.
I saw something to the same effect, Isabel, but I couldn't confirm it. I didn't know if it was a Tesla plant or whatever, but it had something to do with EV in Finland and somebody going broke.
Yeah, like to the tune of 15 million.
There's another company there called Fisker that I'm familiar with, actually. They had, but that's an old story. That's actually kind of a weird story. Fisker went bankrupt they were assembling their vehicles in Finland. That goes back to like 2011 or something. And then the very cool car, they were called the Karma. And then Bob Lutz, who used to be an executive with General Motors, got some guys together and they bought all of the remaining Fisker inventory, including the bodies. And then get this, they took those cars, took all the electric vehicle components out and put big block Chevys in them and sold them. So they were like gas guzzling supercars. So you can,
where can we find one, Rick?
You could find them online. I think they've all sold by now. That there were a limited number available after they bought the bodies.
have they still got a drag strip down at Cayuga? Maybe we could make it go down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he's doing well. I mean, when I see all the stuff that's wrong with these things, it's like, wow.
Yeah, I know his Tesla stock has tanked.
Yeah. And
Well,
those two rockets.
Yeah, I just wanted to pipe up here as we were talking about making the right steps here in Carney a little earlier. And I think he's making a great move by going to Europe first and speaking with Macron and then the British Prime Minister before even venturing south. And just the other little sidebar on that one is that I understand there's a French nuclear submarine sitting on the dock in Halifax.
Yes. You know, you can interpret that in a couple of ways. It could just be a friendly routine visit because nuclear subs do dock there from time to time. But the timing, the way that this has come about, and we had I think it was Freeland saying that Canada needs to make sure that we have a nuclear deterrent in our back pocket with at least one of our allies from Europe. I think honestly that's what it's about. This is about our sovereignty. The government is taking this very seriously, and they are sending a message, I think, just by having that sub sit there for a little while, surfaced, sticking up out of the water. This is like, hey, we're Canada. You're telling us that we can't defend ourselves, but we are not alone. We're a NATO member. We're a little bit stronger than you think because we actually have allies and friends, which is more than Donald Trump can say. It's not untrue that Canada, you can't trust them anymore. It's not untrue that Europe and NATO doesn't trust the United States anymore. New caller on the line, private number. Who's that?
Good day, Rick. How are you?
Good. Who's this?
I had a quick question for you.
What's your name?
Arm.
Arm? Okay. Well, welcome to the show. Go ahead.
My quick question is, how does tariffs work within intercompany? Let's say there's a company who works within Canada, but the main headquarters is within the USA.
How does it work? If whatever they're producing is manufactured in Canada and is being exported to the United States, when those goods leave the factory, say in Toronto, get to the border, and they're crossing into the United States, U.S. Customs stops the shipment. They assess what it is, and then they bill through the shipping company to the purchaser, the purchasing company, a tax of, in this case, it would be 25% because it's uniform across almost all the different industries. So they'd apply a 25% import tax or tariff on the incoming goods to make them more expensive coming into the United States. The purchaser on the U.S. side pays that tax. Then that increased cost is passed on to consumers or whoever buys those products afterward at the marked up price on the U.S. side, which is why prices go up in the United States. The reason it affects Canada is because everything we're selling into the United States becomes more expensive. That means that the United States will buy less of it or maybe none of it if we're not price competitive anymore. And they'll find other sources for it, or they'll produce it themselves. And that's an incentive then for the company to shut down that factory in Canada and relocate it to the United States. That's how it works.
So if you're just switching back and forth within a company,
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter if it's crossing the border. If there's a transaction involved, then you charge 25%. Now, there may be provisions in certain circumstances where but I don't think that Donald Trump has even thought it through that far, because I know the auto industry is worried about it, because parts for automobiles, some of them cross the border 5 and 6 times during the production process. is what I'm told, because of the way that things are distributed. I don't fully understand the modern just-in-time delivery systems that would end up doing that, but I guess it does happen for some components, which means that some of those parts would have the tariff applied like 5 to 6 times before it's actually in the finally assembled product.
Well, some of the companies I deal with would be like Linamar, let's say, and they go back and forth probably 6 times within a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Massive amounts of charges, right? And this is why it won't take long for maybe the entire economy to collapse under the weight of this. This is so stupid because it's going to affect everything. And then you've got the economic linkages within the U.S. economy itself. I'm just looking at the U.S. side, right? Like, and so everything coming in from Mexico, from China, from Europe, from Canada, everything is like 25% more expensive. And every time it crosses the border, it gets hit again. And then everything that is produced that comes into the economy becomes a component of every other thing from an economic equation. You understand? Because it's like,
absolutely,
because
it's a domino effect,
right? Because even the paint that goes on a car, right?
It's a domino effect.
Yeah,
it'll make all products go up.
Yeah,
the tariff on one product will make all products go up because it's a domino effect.
And there's a multiplier on that, because if you have to pay tax, the tariff on the paint that goes on a car that becomes a taxi cab, it increases the cost of the ride on the taxi cab, which, you know, the guy that is riding in the taxi cab to get to work, it increases his cost to get to work, which makes him put more upward pressure on wages on the employer. Like it's like a chain reaction. That's economic velocity. This is really a big problem.
I have a question for you, Rick.
Yeah.
I have a question for you that I think that the chat is wondering this question, and I think it's a great question. Now, if it came down to us joining, or we had to like join one or the other, let's say U.S. or say screw U.S. and just go to EU, what would your opinion be on that?
I think people have to decide for themselves at that point what they would want, because personally,
no, I mean you. What do you think our best interest would be?
From a moral and from a purely moral perspective and ethical perspective, the way things sit tonight, I don't want anything to do with the government that is being run by Donald Trump. I love the United States, and if this had been handled in a different way, where it had been like an invitation instead of economic coercion to try to force us to become part of, then I would have said, hey, if people choose that, then I'm okay with it. But I don't want anything to do with this government, because it is authoritarian. He's using force, and he's bullying countries, and I don't want anything to do with it. This is dark, and it's not freedom oriented. It isn't democratic.
Yeah, ask us. We've been friends for a long time. Ask us to join.
Right.
Don't threaten us to join. Don't do everything against us to destroy our country. So we're forced to join. I agree 100% with that, Rick. 100%. And a lot of people aren't getting that point.
Yeah.
It should be our choice to do it. We should be given that choice, and not be forced on that choice. But
nor should our decision when we're making that choice be influenced through any kind of aggressive
threats of war, essentially.
Under any kind of duress, right? Where they're like, if you can, it's your choice, but if you don't, we're gonna crush you. Like, that's not really a choice.
Exactly.
That's like you don't have to get the thing in the arm, but if you don't expect to get on a train or a plane or on a bus.
Exactly.
Same
damn thing. Deal. Same damn thing, Rick.
Same thing. And
you hit the nail on the head.
And all the people were upset about that. And here they are cheering for the guy who just happened to be in the White House when all of that was going down, and then blamed the governors and said, I'm just letting the governors do what they want, state by state. Yeah, do you not see what's happened here? Within a month of this guy being back in office, we're back in the same scenario. It's your choice, but if you don't choose right, then we're going to take it from you.
I don't think people understand it. They're all trusting in Trump. Hey, listen, we trust in Trump. We believe everything that he's doing is right. They're not questioning nothing. They're just thinking everything is perfect. Just wait. Everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't believe that.
And here's the thing: the people who keep saying, Canada's not a real country, we should decouple from the monarchy. I'm not in that boat, in that camp at all. You know why? Because I know that if we want to decouple from the monarchy, we can do it. All we have to do is ask. And King Charles will let us, because they're letting a lot of countries, including like the Barbados is just one. There are, I don't know how many countries around the world that have disengaged from being under, like, not even having the connection directly to the king, right? So you just have to ask. But in the case of Donald Trump, it's like, well, if you don't choose right, we're going to crush your economy. Britain's not doing that. And even now, Trudeau went to see the king because we're being threatened by Donald Trump in the United States. And Britain is our security net. That's what it's been there for from the very beginning. I've been telling people this for years, sitting in this chair. That's our insurance policy.
That's right.
We need that.
That's our insurance against the gangsta.
That's right.
In the White House.
Because the king is there to ensure process, not policy. The king is there to back us up in case we are threatened. What happened today with that ceremony when Carney was sworn in as prime minister, that was not about the king controlling us. That was about the king protecting us. That should have sent a message, just the ceremony itself, to the White House, that if you mess with us, you're actually messing with Britain, you're messing with all the Commonwealth countries, you're messing with NATO, you're messing with all of Europe. We're not alone. Now we decouple from that, and we are. Now we're very vulnerable. Now, do we have the means to defend ourselves against the United States? And then some people would argue, well, that shows that Canada is not a real country, that it doesn't stand on its own. But really, in reality, do any of these countries have the ability to stand up to the United States on that level? Together we do, collectively, and we have each other's backs. That's the difference between us. We're a country of cooperation, not conquest. The United States under Trump has returned to that philosophy where it's using force. You do as we say. We're the big dog. You knuckle under. We're Godzilla.
Typical American.
That's
typical American.
Which is what they've been accused of, and I've defended them, saying, no, that's not the America that I know, because it hasn't been largely in my lifetime. It has been a kinder, gentler America over time. We've had some, pretty good presidents who use the economic and military force of the United States to promote prosperity, economic prosperity, and attract people to want to be part of Western society, not use coercive force to punish allies or punish people to take over their countries. This is not normal. So I don't want anything to do. The answer is I don't want anything to do with what is going on down there right now.
No, me either. But I know when my dad came back from World War II, and he was a prisoner in Nazi camp for 3 years. And his attitude towards America was the Yanks you can't trust. And that was Vance.
Yeah.
That was Vance. So, I mean, this is it coming back around full fold.
Yeah.
He thought we were oh, poor little Canada, they got nobody. That didn't work out for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's nothing but a blowhard. And I'm going to take over, like I say, like a gangster. Either you pay what I want or I break your leg. So this is where we're at, but he's finding out different. We have more allies than he counted on.
Yes.
So.
Well, Rick, you know, Rimbier, I'd love you to play that interview of I love this new indigenous premier from Manitoba on an interview with CNN, and he just said to these Americans, hey, we stand together like buffalo. Do you know what a buffalo is? He said to the guy on CNN. And he says, we don't avoid a storm. Buffalo point their face right into the blizzard. And he said, elbows up, hockey players, it's you know, you got to deal with a bully by being a bully back, right?
Well, no, I think you deal with a bully by showing that you're not weak. Just stand strong and do the right thing. Just defend yourself. We don't have to win the trade war. We just have to defend ourselves, make sure that whatever we do generates some bloody respect, which is what's in order here. And just make it hurt a little bit to show them, like, hey, we might not be as big as you, but if you do this, you're just hurting yourself, and that's all we have to do. But if you do nothing, if we do nothing, they will take everything we have, starting with the auto industry. He'll just take it.
They're hurting. Yeah. They're just hurting themselves. That's all they're doing. They're not, you know, and the American people think, you know, just wait. He knows what he's doing. I think Trump is over his head, personally. Maybe his intentions were right, or maybe even are right, but he's going about it all the wrong way. There's no chance that the world is going to accept it. Mm-hmm. The United States have pissed the entire world off one time or another at one point. People are sick and tired of being bullied by the United States.
Yeah.
And the stand is being taken, and Canada's taking that stand. We're not being bullied by the United States. If we want to join you, we'll ask you, or invite us, and then maybe we can vote on it. But don't come here onto Canada and attack us like you are, trying to destroy our country, and talk about annexing our country. And he actually said that, annexing Canada.
Well, he did, yes. And I'm pretty certain that we will see a referendum being pushed, especially out in Alberta, and that will be pushed really by U.S. influence, which is inappropriate, I would say even illegal. It's I'm certain that is illegal under our Constitution, under our laws, and I'm not even sure that it's legal through international law, but you're going to see it, and people are out in Alberta, some people are going to say, we want this, and if not for the nation, it'll be a referendum on separation for Alberta and maybe Saskatchewan, maybe even some others. They're going to try to present that as a choice for people. It'll be very divisive.
The word is Albertans are not going to sign. Most Albertans are not going to agree to it. That is the word that I'm getting, Rick. So I don't think that's going to happen.
Depends on how bad the economy gets.
That's true.
That's the other reason I think the government will go to an election very, very quickly.
Is the USA currently.
Sorry, go ahead, Arm. What was that?
That's the other reason.
Arm, I didn't understand what you said.
The biggest threat to this world currently is the USA.
Arm, I didn't understand.
It's
always been.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I agree with that tonight. Yeah.
They've always been the biggest threat. And now they're the biggest threat that we've ever had.
Unfortunately.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, but I would qualify that and say it's not the USA, it is Donald Trump and this MAGA administration. This is not the America that I know. This not the America, certainly not the promise of America. It's not supposed to be like this.
And it's not going to work. Even some of the people who voted for him are having second thoughts already because they're going to suffer. And he keeps saying, well, this is only going to be for a little while. It's going to hurt for a little while.
Yeah.
That's not what you promised them, and that's what they're saying.
Trump. It was either Trump or Kamala. Kamala, that administration was worse for America. They really did. They were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They voted the best as they could. So you can't blame the everyday American.
I didn't think,
No,
actually,
I mean,
RV, I didn't think it could get worse. And then we got this. I was like, how do you do worse than a guy who's asleep all the time? But this is, I'd take the sleepy guy tonight, to be honest with you, because at least he was sleeping.
I know. Like, it's crazy. I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, somebody needs to take those magic markers away from Trump.
Yes. Yeah, his crayons.
Yeah.
Take them away.
You know, guys, Rimby, we're forgetting a big component here. If Mexico, the president of Mexico, links arms with Canada, we will bring the United States of America to their knees with our two countries working together, because the United States doesn't exist without inputs from Mexico and Canada. Let's just be really brutally honest about this. America exists in the United States.
It should probably, over time, make it adapt, just like we'd have to adapt.
It'll only work. It'll only work if Trump achieves his goal of getting factories to move there and quickly, and then that will result in investment and construction projects, and that will stimulate the economy. But if he doesn't get those factories to move, then it all backfires on him. It all hinges on companies leaving. That's why I said Canada should implement an exit tax on any company that has taken any kind of government grants, subsidies, tax breaks, anything through any government program to build or upgrade, their facilities, anything, any kind of government money. If they decide to leave because of this, for this period of time, just this period of time, 75% exit tax. We'll take 75% of the value of everything you're taking out of there. Your factory, everything, all your assets as you leave the country. What's that? I'd make it really, really heavy, because that would then say to them, you can leave right now while this guy's in office and he's implementing these policies, but it's going to cost you. You go ahead, but we're not letting you just pick up and leave for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, if they get the subsidies from the government, which is our money,
right?
Why let them walk away scot-free? And then you asked for these subsidies, you got these tax breaks and everything.
Yeah.
You got everything you wanted, and you're funding, and then you're going to just say bye-bye and walk away without being penalized? No.
I've seen it happen too many times, even before this, where like Navistar, International Harvester, transport truck assembly facility here in Chatham. It's been here for since the beginning of the auto industry, right? And this is probably 15 years ago, or maybe longer. It shut down. The federal government gave them over $20 million to stay. They had to do it. I won't give you all the details. It was complicated because at that point, the United States, under NAFTA, didn't want. There were things that would prohibit the government from just giving money like that to a company to keep them here. They did it through training grants and sort of a loophole in the NAFTA agreement to get Navistar to stay. But all that did was delay the inevitable. They gave Navistar the $20 million. They stayed open for, I don't remember, it was a lot of money. Might have been even more than $20 million. They stayed open for another year and a half or 2 years, and then they still shut the thing down and moved everything to Chicago. And today that plant has been leveled. It's not even there.
Didn't Sterling Trucks in St. Thomas go there?
No, not to Chatham. No.
No, I mean to the States.
I remember that. I think they saved that facility. I'll have to look it up.
I think they went to the United States.
They may have.
Because that was a big manufacturing in St. Thomas for Sterling Trucks, the 18-wheelers. And
I think they did go USA, but don't hold me to that.
Yeah, they're out of
like a lot of companies went there. Because basically what I did growing up was factory work, assembly. And it was like almost, you get in there, you get going, and you think, great, I got a job, I've landed. Next thing you know, it's, well, we're going to close up and, we're moving.
Yeah,
Where were they going?
They
to
shut
the
it
States.
down. Yep.
Southwest Ontario was the hub of manufacturing,
yes.
And we need to bring that back.
And I'm amazed at the level of ignorance that is on display through the Trump administration. And Mr. Lutnick yesterday saying that all the cars used to be made in Michigan. So why did Canada stole the auto industry? Why do we let them steal all our car manufacturing? Mr. Lutnick, Canada has been manufacturing cars in conjunction with the United States since the dawn of the auto industry. Henry Ford set up facilities in both Windsor and Detroit from the beginning to manufacture Model Ts. So, Mr. Lutnick, you don't know what you're talking about.
What about Tammy?
We built the industry together.
Yeah. What about Tammy?
In what respect? In Ingersoll? What about it?
Yeah. Is it? They have to transport back and forth in states, do they not?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of. Obviously, these plants are located here because they're strategically located so that they can go over the border in Sarnia or Windsor, or they can head the other direction up to Queenston, Lewiston, Niagara Falls area. Right, the borders are not that far. We're sort of centrally located, and then we can get right down into some of these industrial areas down in Michigan, Ohio, Illinois.
This is really going to hurt the Cami plant.
It's going to hurt everything here. It's hurting it. That's the thing. The Canadian approach, in my view, what our leaders are doing, I think it's the right approach. We're not implementing 25% across the board tariffs like Trump is. They're picking very specific products to tariff where they get maximum result. On the U.S. side, inflict maximum pain there just to send a message, to try to get a response in a positive way, to get these tariffs lifted, and while having minimal impact here in Canada. That's why I say, doing this to Florida orange juice, big deal. Let tariff that. We'll just buy more orange juice from Chile and Mexico.
Yeah, or like Kentucky.
Right.
You get the liquor and we're pinpointing certain states that are really going to start screaming at Trump.
Yeah. So
we're not just going across the board. Oh, we're just going to, all the way across the board. No, we're going to pick this one and we're going to pick that one, and they're going to start yelling in your ear because they're getting pissed because they're not getting their trade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the way we were doing it, very pinpointed, strategically done, not like Dumbo in the White House.
And the people who are saying that Doug Ford was stupid to pull the U.S. liquor off LCBO liquor store shelves because they've already paid for it, they're actually largely mistaken. My research indicates that most of the liquor in Ontario LCBO stores is in there on consignment. So I don't think that the LCBO stores actually paid for it. It's in there. They haven't paid for any of it, and they've taken it off the store shelves and it's sitting in the back rooms. That's why you had all these liquor company sales reps down at all these LCBO locations when all this was going on, because they're trying to get the product back that we haven't paid for at all. So it's not hurting taxpayers in that way. Another misconception or misdirection, or I think it's an assumption that was made by some people. And I've even seen some opposition politicians making that statement. I got an email from one of the parties yesterday, and I don't think that's the case. There's some that probably has been purchased, but a lot of it, if not most of it, was in there on consignment.
Yeah, I was wondering that because I was thinking you can't just pull it off and send it back and then expect a refund.
Right.
I was thinking that too. Yeah. So, but check that out. For sure.
You know, guys, Rimby, I think Doug Ford has really handled himself in a very high level diplomatic situation with straight talk tough, but we're becoming Doug Ford fans here, Rickster, out of Alberta. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Well, he's a conservative. During the pandemic, he did things I didn't like, but that was the case here. It was also the case in the United States, where a lot of places got locked down. People keep pointing even out to your neck of the woods, where we saw Pastor Art have people go into, officers go into his church because, pandemic violations, blah, blah, blah. A lot of that same kind of stuff was going on in some parts of the U.S. There were charges laid against churches down in places like Louisiana. So these people who say we should become part of the United States or the 51st state because it's so much freer down there, and they keep pointing to some of these things that happened in Canada. No, it was pretty much the same. Same stupidity there that we had going on up here. A lot of the same stuff. It was varied state by state. And, places like Florida, more freedom down there during the pandemic for sure. But you can't say that about all of the U.S. Look at New York, look at California. Pretty heavily locked down. So, sorry.
Yeah, they were going through the same thing we were going through, but I did like Doug, and I really haven't liked Doug Ford, but he took a very diplomatic stand. It's like, you're not gonna push us. We have the upper hand. And when he said we're gonna flick the switch, I thought, hey, flick the switch. Show them who's boss, because we're tired of being pushed around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go pick in a fight, but at the same time, and Donald Trump, actually, he did expose Donald Trump's weakness. Trump came out and he's trying to say that, well, I showed him he can't just turn off our electricity. Yeah, well, what did he just prove? He proved that when you're saying you don't need anything we have, that you were freaking lying. Because as soon as he threatened to put a 25% tariff, or when he did implement a 25% tariff on Canadian electricity going to 3 U.S. states, you freaked out. And you said, you can't do that. That's not, that's inhumane. That's an act of, well, he didn't come out and say it was an act of war, but basically the same thing.
Well, but guys, Daniel Smith has pointed out some cold hard facts to Mr. Trump, as Alberta fits with the 3rd largest oil and gas reserves in the world, let alone we have 500 years worth of coal here, the cleanest burning, most high efficiency coal in the world, Greta Thunberg. And Daniel Smith has pointed out all these things Trump talks about, drill, baby, drill, baby, drill. Well, they don't have the oil wealth Alberta has, and they need all of Canada. Potash, oil, lumber, fisheries. They need us.
Oh, they do,
they
John.
Need Mexico too.
They absolutely do. And here's the thing about what Doug Ford did. I said the other night, and I've said this a few times, Mr. Trump, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because as freaked out and as scared as Donald Trump was because Doug Ford talked about just imposing that on Ontario electricity, Ontario is not even the largest producer of hydroelectric power. Quebec dwarfs what Ontario produces for the U.S. So if Quebec does it too, they are really screwed.
But Rick, there's also power goes down from Manitoba. I didn't realize with the Premier of Manitoba on that CNN interview that Manitoba supplies electricity and power down into the southern United States there. And I thought, we got to work collectively together as Canadians And I'm still wondering, Brian Howell had mentioned out of Kingston, this premier of Quebec, he really hasn't come out and said a lot. And what scares me about Carney is he tells one thing to Westerners one way, and then he talks a different way to Quebecers. They're still going to block my pipeline going through Quebec. They don't want it.
I don't know, John. I mean, I don't know. I understand your concern. When I listened to what Carney said in his speech today, he made very specific reference to kind of creating a unified country because he understands that we can't continue to function as a nation state in this environment if we don't get rid of these interprovincial trade barriers, and if the federal government doesn't have some mechanism in place to kind of push these pipelines and things through. So there will be changes either one way or another from whatever government we end up with. It will be a national necessity to deal with this because it can't continue like this. So if Quebec won't come to heel on this, they'll be forced to. And what Carney has been doing is playing politics because there's an election coming up. So whatever is what he's really thinking, he can't really say that because they need to win Quebec because there's so many seats in the system that they need to win in order to form government. So if he says the wrong thing and alienates Quebec, he's got a problem with the election. Do you understand what I'm saying? So he's choosing his words. Now, I don't know where he falls on this. It's a crapshoot. But whether it's Poilievre, Singh, or Mr. Carney, they're all going to face the exact same problem with regard to Quebec and Alberta, frankly, because Alberta has a strong separatist movement out there, just like Quebec does.
But you know, come on, let's be fair to Alberta. Daniel Smith has always been Team Canada, and I love my friend Dragon in Quebec. But I mean, the premier of Quebec is still he's Team Quebec. When is Quebec going to become part of Team Canada? Because they sure haven't been in 50 years. I'm sorry. They just, and when I lived in Ontario, I spent every other weekend in Montreal. And it's one of the most incredible cities in the world. And I mean, I didn't tell them I was living in Ontario. I said I was from Alberta. And I got to tell you, they treated me absolutely like Rolls Royce. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. Well, we've been down this road many times, John, and you know we keep rehashing it. But I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying, one way or another, I think in pretty short order, you're going to see some changes coming in this country, and some people are going to be pushed up against the wall if they don't get on board, especially in Quebec. I think you're going to see some action out there. Because this has just gone on too long, too far.
I have to drop down, so can I just step in and say one last thing and basically say goodbye as well?
Yeah.
I want to give you guys a prediction. Okay. I have a prediction for you. You can take it as you want.
Mm-hmm.
On March 21st, from that point on, the dark energy is going to start subsiding. You're going to start seeing a lot of light. There's going to be a lot of happier people. Thank you for having me up, Rick. And I really appreciate you having me on panel. Thank you.
Thank you, RV.
Good night, everyone.
Again,
everyone take care.
Great comments, good conversation. Thank you for joining tonight. Thank you very much.
Hey, love from Alberta, Canada, RV. Love from Alberta, my friend.
Yeah, very
Have a good night,
stuff.
RV.
Yeah. And with that, guys, now I this song that we have to close the program off tonight, John, I wrote the lyrics for this one specifically with you in mind. So I'm going to
thank you very much.
So I'm going to
say a real honor.
I'm going to save the final comments so that you get to go last, so that we can then get into the tune. And Isabel, I'll throw it to you for your final thoughts tonight.
We'll get through this. Canada will be unified. You'll see. You'll see. Chin up, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, Isabel. And John, you keep referring to Donald Trump as the orange orangutan. Why do you do that?
Well, that's just how he kind of comes off, doesn't he? The orange orangutan, 2,800 pounder in the China shop.
Yeah. Well, give me
the coloring on his face or there?
Yeah, give me a final thought on Donald J. Trump tonight in the context of him being the orange orangutan.
Oh man, you're kind of catching me off guard here. Geez, I don't know, but he's just a big orange orangutan. He's a bully. He's just a straight up bully. Yeah. And I'm deeply offended as a Canadian. He owes us a major apology to all Canadians across Canada, the one of the greatest countries in the world, and let's not forget, God has really blessed Canadians with our natural resources and our society here, and I'm just so thankful for it. It's not that we don't love our American friends and relatives. Our anger at booing at a hockey game at the orange orangutan is exactly directed at the orange orangutan, not our beautiful American friends and family we love. And that's how Canadians get their message out.
Okay. Well, because you keep referring to Donald Trump as the big orange orangutan, this new song was created with you in mind. So
thank you.
So here it is, everybody. The newest release from Maverick and the News Brothers. In honor of John Scotty Rimby from Alberta, Canada. And by the way, I'll see you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern on the flip side. No movie tonight. I'll try to do a Maverick Midnight Matinee tomorrow night. But tonight, no movie. I'll see you at 7 Eastern on the flip side. Take it away, Maverick and the News Brothers with Orange Orangutan Man.
Monkey see, monkey do. Vladimir Putin's making a fool out of you. Once a deal maker, now just a shouter. Used to shake hands, now it's all about power. You turn your back on your friends and your allies too. You betrayed the spirit of the red, white, and blue. Oh, orange orangutan man, swinging through the world with a heavy hand, tearing up treaties, slapping on tariffs, throwing tantrums like a billionaire sheriff. Dial it down, don't stop it, man, you beast, you critter. Orange orangutan man. Donald Trump 1.0 had a plan. Now Donald J. Trump 2.0's a wrecking man. Used to make deals, now you just sneer, ruling through fear, grinning ear to ear. Canada's not for sale, Greenland ain't yours. Gaza's not a playground, quit making wars. Bluffing and puffing with a wig on tight, acting like a boss but you lost the fight. The art of the deal, man, that ship sunk. Now it's all about rage and a nuclear funk. Orange orangutan man, swinging through the world with a heavy hand, tearing up treaties, slapping on tariffs, throwing tantrums like a billionaire sheriff. Dial it down, don't stop it, man, you beast, you critter. Orange orangutan man. You're fired. No, you're just bananas.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.